Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the official sponsor of Jordan Brand, the one and only Pro GK Academy, Omar Zeenni, with his PSG background in the background. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? What's up? I got the microphone now, so it's not just you as a microphone again.
Oh
I found the piece that
I have a microphone. I just don't have it. Like I don't have to hold it.
that's for visual effect though, because I don't even think that is that even connected. Oh, okay. Well, you sit like 5 feet. You sit like 5 feet away from it.
That person right there who's trying to get as close to the microphone as possible. You guys know her. 99 World Cup winner Saskia Webber. By the way, congratulations! The season will be coming to a start. That's why I'm wearing my UCLA to share the fact of finally getting that Pac-12 season going. And speaking of a little bit of a Pac-12, we got somebody who has a little bit of a Pac-12's experience a while back as well too. We have PSG goalkeeper making her triumphant return to Inside the 18, Arianna Criscione. What is up?
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to see a lot of representation going on here. Really want to see Omar get the actual Jordan PSG logo in the background. Then that would be super money. But you could throw our fourth jersey up there. That'd be pretty awesome.
You can do the Jordan UCLA now one too because we're Nike and Jordan.
Oh,
wow! No more Under Armour?
No, thank God. Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, it's a good thing I'm not wearing that Under Armour hat right now. So that would would be a bad.
We're transitioning. Let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh. Well, honestly, Arianna, obviously a lot has happened since last time you were on the show. You taught Omar to start watching women's soccer, so thank you for doing that.
Honestly though, we do have to give a shout out. His page has so much more women's content. I'm very proud of you, Omar. Seriously,
that's right.
That's amazing.
It's okay. I just needed to get my butt handed to me on live footage here, but it's okay. It happened, and it's good. Honestly, I wish my numbers were getting higher for women support, but it's like still hasn't wavered. So I gotta double down.
Well, I think it's going to happen, and I think one of those reasons, Omar, is because you're doing things like participating in like a Q&A with Arianna Criscione tomorrow live on Instagram Live at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
What a great transition and plug.
That was an amazing
you're
plug. I love
good, Mike.
I'm realizing that Mike doesn't listen to hear our points. He listens for the best place to translate or to transfer the conversation to the next part.
He does. It's all
We
about
called the transitioner.
Transition. I get translate. I can't even speak.
But
okay.
Honestly, Arianna, those IG lives have been blowing up since we last had you. Obviously, 20 Questions with Friends. For those people out there who might not kind of be familiar with 20 Questions with Friends, because I think one of the really cool things about it is that it's not just goalkeepers, it's not just soccer players. You have people from all different walks of life that you have on, and a lot of times it really brings up some really interesting conversations from those questions.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I did it kind of during the first lockdown, quarantine, whatever people want to call it these days, that first emotional roller coaster that most of us went through, especially in Europe where we were completely shut down. And I was doing it for my friends, teammates, and colleagues to get them chatting and doing something fun and different. And I just wanted it to be something completely different than interviewers normally do, and different questions, and get people to know the person. Obviously not fully on the inside, it's only 20 random questions, but a little bit differently than we normally see them, than their content usually shows. And I don't give them the questions up front. They always ask for them, but it turns out I promise them I will not put them under a bus or put them in any awkward situations, and everybody has a lot of fun. So it's turned out well. We've had the odd, weird questions that people throw into the chat box, but we just ignore them.
I love it.
And it's good.
I can't wait. Omar, I can't wait. I guess.
Oh my gosh, my favorite one was the last time that Omar was on, and what was there were some interesting questions that come on board, Omar, last time you were on that. So this Q&A, I know you're going to try to keep it very goalkeeper specific.
I want to do it.
No, honestly, I will say it's better than I did with Alone and Insane Mike with a while back. It was all Spanish. And it was just all my friends commenting just like the dumbest things in the chat. It was just like, good job, papi, good work. And I was just like, guys, it's a serious conversation. Stop. But yeah, as long as you don't have any Spanish questions or anything in French, I'll be fine.
But I mean, it's really been awesome, Arianna, because we've seen just all the different things that you've been doing, just, maximizing your communication during the quarantine in regards to finding other outlets and giving a lot of, more opportunities for voices for a lot of different people out there. You've even started doing that work as kind of an ambassador for Voice in Sport. What do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Voice in Sport is a new platform. I think it's been out for maybe 5 months now. And the objective is just to get girls from the ages of 13 to 22 to stay in sport. Doesn't have to be high competitive sport, just has to be getting with your friends, playing whatever sport you like. Doesn't have to be the beautiful game. It can be any of the games. And you go on there, any girl can sign up. It's totally free at the moment. And you're able to speak to women like me, other professional athletes from all across sports, Olympians, collegiate athletes in different divisions, and you can go on. There's tons of blogs discussing different women's issues throughout sport and personal life, nutrition, and even within that, you can go on. You can talk to them about college experience. You can talk to them about their journey. You can talk to them about anything, and you just get this outlet as a free mentor to encourage women. They've done a lot of studies saying that a lot of little girls don't have mentors. And this platform is there to give them the mentor and give them the example. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And so it's just trying to show little girls that they can do what they want, and let's keep them in sport and keep their confidence growing.
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, like in regards to that, I think one of the most important things, regardless of whether you're a boy or a girl or what ethnicity or religious denomination or whatever, the more and more examples you have of people that remind you of yourself, or that you can see yourself, basically, I don't want to say making an impression of, but, being in their position one day, I think the better off we're going to be. And obviously, Omar, I mean, we poked a little bit of fun in regards to, the lack of female representation on the channel, in the past or whatever, but I think you need to know that a lot of the women out there who have been watching the channel really have been appreciating it. So even if even if you say we're like, oh, the numbers haven't been going up or whatever, I think just the communications that I've gotten from not only just, young girls, but also pro athletes, speaks volumes to the fact that, that you're putting that out there.
What I will say, it's not the numbers are great for the viewers. Like, it's looking good. But I mean by that is like the percentage of male to female ratio on my following. So like the content has been going great. I love it, but I wish more women would, I mean, I know they appreciate their messaging me, but I think I want more women on there as well, so that we can drown out some people still comment some stupid stuff, man. And I'm just like, some guy DM like, why? No, some guy DM me and he was like, why are you posting so much female content? And I was like, well, I'm posting it, so if you don't like, you can follow somebody else, but like, you're going to be seeing a lot of it on the channel. And then I see that and I'm just like, what the hell? Like, do people really have an issue with this? And I think when you're not exposed to it, you're sheltered, right? But when you start exposing that, and then people start showing you their true colors, you just go, this is an issue I never knew existed. But now that I'm almost not the focal point of it, but I'm the one who's introducing this to the goalkeeping community more often. Now I'm like, oh wow, there's people who really do have issues with this. So it's like, I could care less. I mean, at this point, I'm like, dude, if you don't want it, get out of here. Like, what is the difference? Like, you're watching a goalkeeper do the exact same thing a man would do, and we're talking about the technical points the exact same way. And so what's the difference? To me, it's just like, I don't see the difference, but there are people who do. So I'm going to just drown those guys out. So you'll be seeing a lot more of it.
It's awesome.
Sorry. I'm reading some comments right now. And I was just like,
oh,
boy.
I mean, what I would say too is if your microphone works, get closer to your microphone.
I turned it down because, is that better?
I don't know.
Is that better?
It's better. I thought it was there as a prop, but
no, it works.
There we go. See how much better that is? Right there.
Everybody always tells me I'm really loud, so.
No, it's okay. We'll dial it down when we.
I didn't want to take over. I'm still reading.
There's comments. Oh, on Facebook.
There's some comments. Yeah.
Have you guys seen too? I think it was this fall, and I believe it was BBC Sport that came out, and they had a lot of female content. It was either The Guardian or BBC Sport. I can't remember exactly, so I'm not sure if you guys saw it. But they were posting a lot of stuff on women's football and the WSL in England. And there was a lot of Twitter and just some responses like, why is there so much women's stuff? Why can't you just make a page for them? And they came out and were like, we're sport. So that means everybody, if you don't
Yeah.
want us, don't follow us. And it went viral over here, and it was pretty impressive and amazing to see a figure.
Yeah, it's just, and like I said, like Omar, you're surprised, but I mean, Arianna and I aren't. Like it's the way it is, and you have those misogynistic men out there that look how long it took England to get a league and even a team, like even anybody to pay attention to their national team. And they used to slam them in the English press, and that women shouldn't be playing soccer and
go back to the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. Like they wanted nothing to do with it, which is kind of why Megan Rapinoe came out and was just like, I'm not cheering the league over there that took them too long. But at the same time, you have to say steps are steps, and as long as we're going in the right direction, we're going in the right direction. But it's out there, and it sucks, and that's why it takes so long for these countries to fund their women's programs, everything.
Well, that's what I think. I think to finish this point for me, it's just like you always want to be on the right side of history, right? And I think a lot of times though, people will normalize things that are not normal, and then later on, people will catch up to them, and it'll be normal, right? But it's like in this very moment, there's an opportunity to really amplify that with social media being so present and so prevalent for all of us in our daily usage. So it's like for us, it's like, why don't we just do that? And then later on in 5-6 shifts, people will be like, oh yeah, like I post women's content too. I'm like, but where were you 5 years ago? Like, you know what I mean? So like it's people are going to get there eventually, but you got to put it into the subconscious. And I think over time, people will catch on.
70 million Americans that are on the wrong side of history right now. Boom, I'll say it. So I'm like, bring it. So sometimes it takes a long time for people to learn. But as long as they learn.
By the way, I thought Omar was really excited, and then I realized it was a Wi-Fi issue because you were talking so fast during that moment. And I was like, my God, he is so passionate about this right now. Yes, Omar, look at the impression that Arianna has made on you. And then I realized, I was like, oh, actually, that's just the Wi-Fi that has sped Omar up to the
I have spoken slower. People, all the listeners, if you listen to our first few episodes, I was talking like a robot. Now it's a little bit slower, so you can articulate a little better.
To be fair, actually, when I had you on 20 questions, I had a bunch of people like, it's not our first language. Please slow down.
It was rough. It was rough. Mike knows when I get excited about something, it just goes.
Well, speaking of all this, guys, all the articulation, the communication, this communication that we're having, it really leads into, look at the topic. I know. It's about maximizing your communication, guys. And honestly, one of the really cool things about the conversation that we've just been having here, it's not necessarily when we're talking about communication, Arianna, about what we're saying, but a lot of times it's about how we're saying things too. So kind of what do we kind of mean by that?
How we say it, I think there's a lot to do with this, obviously not just within conversation amongst ourselves at the moment, but clearly if we take it back to the field, how a goalkeeper says it, tone of voice, authority in their voice, also their presence on the field within that. So even just their body language makes a huge difference. And I know, especially when I was growing up, I was really lucky to be tall and bigger and regularly told I had a great presence on the field, or they were just trying to tell me I was huge. I'm not really sure, but that's a nice way to say that. But I think that that's actually always been in my favor, and I could probably get away with making some more mistakes because I was bigger and had a better presence. And we can all say that it's definitely important, and it's big right now, especially in the game. And on this topic too, for me, I've had coaches teach me if I can communicate well enough with my teammates to never have a shot on me, I had an amazing game. And a lot of people don't look at it that way and realize how much work goes into it and how tired you can be from not running and not moving and not doing anything, as everybody will tell you. But oh my God, if you are really engaged in that game and you can stay in it for 90 minutes, which is super hard, you're exhausted mentally by keeping it together.
I like you say, that's that trivia question, what's the greatest save a goalkeeper can make? And it's no save at all is the answer. And why? Because your organization, your communication is so on point that you've put the chess pieces together that there are no shots on goal. And if they are, they're just easy, simple, you've manipulated the situation so it's just a quick catch. And absolutely, communication is paramount, but proper communication. I have players that they get frantic, so their communication is frantic or stressed, and that just it filters through your team. And you have to, there are times that you have to raise your voice, or there are times that you have to have inflection, but there are other times that you're a calming person back there. You have to settle things down. And so it's really important to understand that it's the tone of your delivery as well.
Yeah. And one of the things, like Omar, I think one of the difficult things in regards to social media is, when you're posting a clip and you're breaking something down, a lot of times it's from a tactical standpoint. But the communication aspect is something that's very much lost because there's not the audio of the goalkeeper communicating. There's 70,000 people there or whatever. Well, nowadays it's just 70,000, staged, cheering, but still there's some sort of sound going on. So you can't emphasize that. So how, when you talk to your followers, for instance, how do you mention to them, hey guys, you have to see that based on these positionings of these different players, that wasn't by accident. That was from a mindset from that goalkeeper to manipulate those players to be in those positions, to lead them into a situation where they're going to either get a shot on their bubble or off frame.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't, unfortunately. I should get more of a holistic approach to it, but sometimes I guess I overlook that factor. I think because there's so many fans, not now, but during the season or during the games, sometimes for me at least, I overlooked that. I remember watching, I think Estadio Azteca was Tim Howard trying to scream over the yelling Mexican fans. And then I remember watching, and my dad was like, do you think they hear him? And I'm like, no, but you can see his mannerisms and you can see how important body language is. So what I do try to tell people is like, yeah, even though sometimes you may not be the best communicator, maybe say less, but what you're not making up for, we make up for it in body language and make up for it in actual visual cues. So I think it's that fine balance. So I know some kids who are like, yo, I don't like talking that much. I'm very introverted. And then when they go on the field, they become extroverted. And I know some kids who are very extroverted and they become introverted in goal, but then they make up for that with their actual visual cues. So either way, but yeah, I'm like, I don't say it enough. I think you kind of caught me off balance here, but I probably start telling people like, look, if you notice here, he's not screaming his head off, but he's showing his defenders where to be and positioning them, whether it's a free kick, whether it's a corner kick. And I think a lot of that too is discussed off the field as well. We did a lot of it. So.
No, sorry if it sounds like a war zone back here. They're helicopters. No, to add to what you said, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was turning into one of these, Omar. Is that, playing in front of that many people with experience, is that, it's a filter. It comes forward. So it goes from you to your center back, to your midfield, to your everybody. This is like, when it's that loud, when there's that many people, I'm not trying to yell at somebody that isn't going to hear me or give, like, this is something that filters through the team in certain situations, so it's, if I'm telling Carla, push the team up, I'm saying her by name under those situations. So then she filters it out to people that are close to her, then it goes up to Julie, and then it goes up, so it's you're right. It is a communication and a conversation you have off the field. And that's just in that situation when there are that many people in the stands and it's that loud, you have to figure out other ways, but you're 100% correct. Mannerisms mean something too, but not everybody has time to turn around and see if you're pointing to the right.
Yeah, I think, sorry, one last thing I will say is, I mean, I don't think I've ever played in a stadium that you or Arianna played in. I mean, I'd be very, very confident in saying I never have. Mike, I think you and I probably did at the Y, but like, I think it's a lot easier to communicate there. But I think from when I have played in those situations where it was a little bit loud and there was like significant crowd noise, I would probably tell it at halftime, or when there's like an injury or something like that, I'd go to my defender and I'd say, look, I'm going to modify this like 10-word sentence into one word. And if I say shoulder, that means somebody's coming across your outside shoulder, coming across you. And if somebody is on your back or something, I'm just going to call away completely. So it's just one of those things where you modify the communication so that in times where you can speak, you're saying a lot without saying a lot.
But I know you love to talk, but all communication should be that simple. It should be sound bites, period.
I think you guys are also
we're speaking of the context, yeah.
But you guys are also focusing on the communication, like at the end, at the game. Your communication has also been happening throughout the week of training. Your communication has also been built up with those teammates, and your report, like at lunchtime when you guys are hanging out at the table and they're gaining confidence and you really know each other. And then those words are also taught earlier. So even though you are playing in a packed stadium, they know where you are. And you're not just, yes, there's certain times where there's a total breakdown and your voice really has to make a difference at that moment. But usually the work has been put in a lot earlier and before. And the game time is just kind of accentuating those things that you guys have learned. It's test time. It's not the time to study and to learn the vocabulary. So I think the communication really has to come a lot earlier and build the confidence.
Agree.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, AC, because, you know, that's something that I wanted to discuss, you know, is obviously, and I think that's an issue in regards to youth sports in general, is that coaches focus so much on the game and of telling players what to do in a game. But developing that relationship, so you communicate, maximizing communication. Communication doesn't just mean, you know, talking and saying, giving direction on a field. Communication is having that connection with your team. You know, I've seen a lot of goalkeepers in my life who literally, and I'll use myself as an example, talk all the time, but they're not communicating. They don't have that connection with the back line. And I've seen other goalkeepers who are like quiet as a mouse, but they're so in sync with their back line because they know each other. They have that connection. You know, they need to get to know each other off the field, not just as soccer players, as footballers, but as people, because if you know how somebody ticks, you're going to know how to communicate with them in a game.
Yeah. And it's not even necessarily, because I think some people also try to confuse that with being best friends, and you don't have to be best friends. You don't have to be friends with your team. That sounds bad. And
no,
probably
it's
all the
100%
moms out there,
correct.
soccer moms, are going to be upset that we're saying this, but you have to respect each other. There has to be a mutual respect. There has to be a confidence. There has to be trust. But cool, you do you. Once we go off the field, I do me. And when we get on this field, we're going to tear it up and I'll fight for you. But
it's
once
totally
we step
different.
off, it's cool. And I think people also mistake those things, especially when it comes to the relationships on the field, of wanting their friends to play or being upset if they're not friends. And that again comes to communication and understanding the difference with you. And I do think this is a structure though that comes from the top. So the coach, the staff, the club, the organization, and communication needs to start from the top and be organized and be open to everybody and have that dialogue amongst each other. And this can go into the larger part of, you know, our culture and everything like that. And we can disagree. And I think this is also what's kind of can be a problem in culture now. We can disagree on things as long as we're able to communicate and start to find a solution together.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's like one of the great things about team sports in general in regards to for youth is teaching them those types of life skills, you know. I mean, Saskia, I mean, you've talked about this, you know, consistently over and over again, you know, in regards to when you were coming up and everything like that. You had a certain presence about you, and the reason that you had a certain presence about you is because you had learned how to work with others, give and take, and because of that, people respected you and they trusted you back there.
Yeah, I was just a beast. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, absolutely. But again, as Arianna said, this is something that happens not at a game. This happens throughout your practices, your season, and everything on and off the field. You create that trust, that rapport. We don't all have to be best friends. We don't all have to hang out, but we have to respect each other. And if they don't respect me as a player they're not going to listen to my communication, period. 100%. They're not going to listen to me. They're going to tune me out. Okay. If I'm back there babbling and giving, not just talking, they're not going to listen to me either. But if they respect me as a player, and that means in everything you do, that means showing up fit, you know, like being to meetings on time, being a part, like being a teammate, 100%, carrying the water, doing whatever, shagging balls. If they respect me, they're going to listen to me. Mm-hmm. And that's like unsaid communication. And that's, I think I agree with Arianna 100%. It starts in other places as well. You can't just roll in, and if people didn't like me and if I didn't have a presence and didn't respect me, they would just tune me out, period.
You know, and when we're talking about kind of like, you know, regards to coaches and how to communicate and how to teach, you know, goalkeepers how to communicate, Omar, I know you've been in different environments as a youth player, and certain environments were more positive than other environments, let's just say. And how much did that affect how you were able to communicate with your teammates because of either having the freedom to make mistakes or, you know, being in a situation where you're scared to make a mistake, which affects how you communicate with your players?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that like the way the coaches communicated with me affected the way I communicated with my team. I think once I got into the game, I just kind of lost myself in my communication, didn't really think about what the coach and the environment that he set. But he always encouraged me, he just said, you need to, like the Saskia and Arianna have been saying, like you need to gain their respect so that when you're saying something, they actually have an open ear versus just shutting you out completely. And I think what I really realized that was at Cal State LA, our head coach, I came from UC Davis. There's a lot of rah stuff there. And he was just like, dude, you scream way too much from the sideline. I need you to like sit down and stop talking.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like a culture shock. I was like, wait, why? He's like, if your players don't trust that you trust them and you're always trying to joystick them, one, they can't think freely. They can't think freely. And two, there's not going to be any respect there because now it's just like you're treating them like a little kid. They have a father. let them do them on the field. They need to be like autonomous and just do whatever they need to do. So I think that was an understanding of me. I was just like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So I had to change the way I approach communication. And like we've been talking about now, a lot of that comes in the preparation, and a lot of that just comes with little buzzwords here and there to remind them of the communications you had in the preparation throughout the week.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I think Arianna, I'm sure you've seen this as well too, throughout your professional career and everything like that. It wasn't until when I was, in a scrimmage and I was playing on the field, after college, actually, because in college I talked way too much. And I recognized, because the goalkeeper behind me was doing the exact same thing as me. And I was like, oh, this is what it feels like. This is awful. This is awful. Like, I don't want this person to tell me every single thing to do. And I think that young goalkeepers need to hear that, Arianna, is they need to know that pros like yourself and Saskia, that you give direction when it's needed. And for usually, while a play is developing instead of, during the actual play. But if you're literally trying to move the player,
early.
It's the worst feeling, and they're going to tune you out.
No, for sure. I think there's also something too to be said if we think about it. The longevity of goalkeepers' lives playing in the professional game, and then also how many goalkeepers can cross borders and still be successful in other countries where sometimes players can't. And it's not like you change country and you magically learn a language. I know people might think that, or they can pay these amazing translators and help you in 2 weeks and you can just speak perfectly. But that's not really what happens. You do learn a base of like colors or right, left, or like a vocabulary that you try to help with. But for me, I think that's also taught me how limited I was in my communication with some of my teammates who we didn't speak the same language. And I still had to try to communicate with them, whether that was nodding, our made up sign language and random words. But when we're on the field, again, we had to have trained during the week and the little vocabulary I had to come out. And I think it's really important to see it from that perspective too, that, a little can go a long way, and just learning it.
But I think it's a great point, and that goes to not rambling. When I went and played in Japan, same thing. I had to communicate with my team, so it was basics. It was right, left. It was the minimal, but it went a long way. And so translate that into when you're speaking English on the field, it's the same. And who, what forward wants me back there, even if we're playing small sided, yelling, shoot, I look at my keepers. I'm like, shut up. Like, Mia doesn't want to hear you telling her to shoot. Just like you don't want me to tell you keeper. They call keeper for you, which is one of the dumbest things field players can do, by the way. It's called,
oh my God,
because the keeper
don't worst thing ever. Oh my God, so many countries too. I'd be there and they'd be calling it in their language, and then the defenders stop, and you're like,
or the coach will call it. Somebody will call it, and you're like, the keeper sees the whole field, and maybe the keeper made a mistake. Maybe they slipped. Maybe something happened.
But they're not going, so
they're not going. Don't call it for
worst
them.
idea ever.
It's the worst mistake you can make. But so now field players, now goalkeepers translate that and don't tell field players what to do either. Just tell them when you need to position them. That's it. And I'll have keepers and we'll be playing full field and they're still yelling or they're asking for the ball back. I'm like, why are you asking for the ball back? It's all the way in there attacking third. What are you doing? Let them play, so
for sure.
Dial it down, keepers, dial it down.
But I think a lot of that comes from, and Omar, I want to ask you about this because I think a lot of that comes from goalkeeper training culture. I think a goalkeeper training culture for a long time, at least in the United States, has been very A, B, C, D. 1 + 1 = 2. You follow these things. You follow this regimen. You follow this technique, and this will be the equation. So we go, oh, okay. So when we communicate, it's exactly the same thing, as opposed to kind of, and I think honestly, I think that's where like Europe has been ahead of us in regards to the goalkeeping aspect. Is it's a little bit more of a holistic, more of a Ariana's like,
Arianna, no, Mike says.
Well, I mean,
Mike's
I would have to disagree with you, because if you think
Okay.
about it, except the last 5 years, historically, the best international players coming from out of the United States have been goalkeepers.
Absolutely.
They've been the most successful and have had the longevity in Europe.
Period.
Now we have a lot more players, even men, playing in the leagues and stuff and doing well. But historically, it was our goalkeepers that really held the flag for America as a soccer country.
100%. If you just take the EPL for example, and we'll take men for example, for all those guys that are misogynistic out there that want to talk about men, and just name. Sorry, Omar. Just name players that played in the EPL, and you're going to find that the majority of them were all goalkeepers. Period. And you can go back. I mean, way back if you want, and it's true. So, I'm waving our flag for American goalkeepers too.
I was just trying to make a point about communication.
Mike.
I was just talking about camp culture, but I mean, I think Omar, but you've seen this though in regards to like when you're training kids, and Saskia, you've seen this too. I've seen this too. I'm sure Ariana's seen this too, where kids keep looking at you for the solution, and if that's how they've been taught their entire lives, how the heck are they going to communicate on a field and organize? Because they're always looking for the answers, but they're the ones who are supposed to be giving the direction in that situation in a game. And if they're looking for direction from a coach, they're not going to be able to do that in a game.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me? You figure it out. That's what I always say.
Mike, I think to your point, I think again, I reflect on myself. Sometimes I tell kids in the session, like, I need you to communicate here. I need you to communicate there. And sometimes under the umbrella of communication, kids don't really know what's under that umbrella. They just kind of go, I need to communicate. And then they get to the field. And because sometimes in private sessions like I do, we don't have defenders there. So when they think communicate, they think that it has to be this forceful thing, that it has to be this whole thing where they're trying to help their players solve problems. So I think to some fault, I think I would take some fault of that as well, where I'm like, maybe we have a day or we have a classroom session. I think classroom sessions are huge for this. It's like, hey, I need you to convey this message. Maybe just, hey, this is what you need to do. Tell your defender that this is happening. Convey in the smallest amount of words possible. Go. And I don't think for me, I don't do those that often. All I really do is, hey, say no shot, force them one way. Step up. I mean, there's a few things that you can use, but when you say those words, they're not really communicating or taking someone else's emotional psychology into play. So I think if we could do more of that, I mean, as I'm saying, I'm not saying other people. I'm saying for me personally, yeah, you're
100% correct. But you have to make sure they know why. Like, it's not always force them outside. It is sometimes force them into pressure. Like, we have to, the verbiage that we use as goalkeepers is equally, if not just more important than a lot of the other skills we learn as well, because we're manipulating the play that's coming at us. And so if we can use our voices and if we can move our chess pieces properly, that's, how I usually put it, then there's no shot. And so that's why it's so important.
Can I add on to that real quick? I know I want to get into this. Let me just say one thing real quick. One thing that I always loved was somebody was coming down, let's say our right side, their left side. I always wanted, I'm like, look, I'm very powerful diving off because I love using my top hand to that far post. I want you to let them cut inside. Don't force them outside. Force them inside because it plays to my strength. And I know if they're going to try and go with their far, let's say they're right-footed, when they cut in from the left, they're going to try and bend it to the far post. So I always knew when I communicated that, I always wanted them to play to my strength. So I would manipulate my communication to make sure that they showed them inside where there's help coming, but also too, where the shot was more often than not, that was what they were going to go for and they were going to resort to. And I'm really good at going across my body to make that save, but also too, if it comes back across me, I'm not going to be cheating or leaving myself vulnerable, but I knew that was going to help me out. So I'm going to let that happen. Right, so I think that's what we're talking about.
For every keeper, which is why you need to be on the same page with your defense before a game. Like,
that was your point. That was your point though. You just said earlier. That's what I kind of want to touch on is like, the kids don't know why they're saying that. Coach Omar told me, show them outside. But why would they don't? That's what I'm saying. Some kids, it kind of irks me the wrong way. Where I'm like,
no, but Omar, yeah. I mean, I just want to add on to that because I think one of the problems here is that we're teaching language and we're teaching goalkeepers to play concepts when it comes to communication, and saying like, oh, every time, shift left, shift right, step ups, drop back. We're not teaching them, and Arianna, I'm sure you can talk about this, is how to actually read the game. We're teaching them how to use words, but they're not actually reading what's going on. They're just following a pattern.
Mm-hmm. So my question is to the coaches out there, because I don't coach, and maybe you guys are totally already doing this and I'm behind the curve. But Omar, you said you kind of have classroom sessions with your players. Have you ever taken clips from games, especially watching from the defense, and then let it start to evolve, stop it, and then ask the players where they would put the defenders, and then see if that goalkeeper, if that's what happens?
I don't, but that's a great point.
Does that even make sense?
No, it actually sounded brilliant, to be honest with you.
It sounds like a game I'd play with my friends when we were younger. We'd pretend to be the voices of the players on the field, but that was just a really fun childish game. But kind of stop it, let the play evolve slightly, and then be like, okay, you're the goalkeeper right now. Where do you put this player? Where do you want them to turn? And then let it evolve. And if the shot does come off, like Omar was saying, okay, see, he had him cut inside. This goalkeeper parries it over the crossbar because of it. Blah, blah, blah. Or look, he didn't bring that player in and they just got scored on.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, all my clips and stuff like that with the girl is always a build up, because I always want to see how they have their defense positioned, where the mistakes are made building up to the shot or up to the situation, so that we can stop it and talk about it.
But I feel like too, maybe not their actual game, because I think sometimes too, as goalkeepers, we get felt under pressure and we either say what we want our coaches to hear at that moment. Oh yeah, I totally said this and they didn't listen to me, because you can't really prove what happened. There's not really a microphone necessarily on the field, or something else. So even from different perspectives, from different leagues, from different ages, the guys watching the girls and the girls watching the guys.
We're gonna be on you about that one, Omar.
No, but in a good way, in a totally good way. And be like, no, look, she was in a perfect position because she organized her defense, and you can see the defense move like that. I don't know. I think it could be a cool exercise.
So to that point, I want to bring it up again, Mike. I know we're getting not off tangent here, but when I talk about proactive communication then reactive communication, I don't want reactive to mean okay, they just scored and you're yelling at your team. It's more, for me, proactive is, okay, the center back just got the ball. What's their best option? If they have time, are there runs being made? So proactively, are you putting out fires and letting your defenders know what's happening? Then reactive for me is, okay, let's say that ball does get played and your communication, let's say, didn't get to the defender quick enough, so that person brings the ball down. Now there's not the emergency communication, but it's how composed can you be in now? Okay, now you're reacting to what just happened, and how composed and how calculated can you be in that reactive moment? And I don't think, again, that's a lot of situational stuff and a lot of just game experience. It's very, sorry. But I was saying it's very difficult, in my opinion. I think, Mike, to your point, I think earlier, the concept wise of a lot of this comes from just straight up experience. A lot of parents will ask me oh, why isn't she doing this? Why isn't he doing that? I'm like, they haven't played a game in 8 months, man. They haven't played. So a lot of what they're doing right now is concepts, because in private sessions, we're teaching them certain things and certain final actions and seconds or two prior to that final action, so they can actually, apply certain things. But in the real game, there's so much more developing in front of them. You just got to let them get their feet wet a little bit for the next few weeks or a few games, and then they'll get everything back to normal. Sorry, Sas, go ahead.
No, I was just going, proactive to me means something different. I think proactive to me is I'm organizing my defense even when we're on offense and attacking third. So so that if the ball is stripped, if the ball is turned over, my pieces are in place. So somebody's not all the way on the touchline, hightailing it back because a through ball came in, with a 3-back or something like that, and they were totally out of position. I'm on them when they're not doing anything, when they are standing there, and I'm looking at the way the play goes in our attacking third. So we're going at their goal. I'm looking at it in a sense of, how can this break down? Where are my holes? Where are my weaknesses now? Yeah. And so proactively, I'll be so-and-so pinch in, so-and-so, this space, step up a little bit, so that if it gets turned over, they're already in position. So that's proactive to me.
And that goes back to our podcast with TKI a few weeks ago when I was talking about, I said, like, what is your superpower? And I was like, I don't think it's a superpower, but for me, it was always just being pessimistic. So to your point here is the pessimism of, okay, I know we're up, we're tied 1-1 or 1-0. Corner kick just happened. We got a 2-on-2 here. Okay, what happens in this situation if their keeper catches the ball, hits a side volley? It's a 2-on-2 now. We're done for. So like, that's being pessimistic.
That way. But that's your job. Your job isn't to sit there and ball watch and cheer and hope we score the goal. Your job is to say, what if that keeper pulls down that cross at the 12 and hits a side volley, and let me prepare myself for that. Like let me, So that is proactive.
Could that be preventative communication and then proactive is what I'm at. So I'm just trying to make sure that
I think though too, for me in our conversation, to a certain extent, and in my opinion, and being abroad for so long now, I think sometimes in the States though, especially when you talk about the parents coming up and talking to you, and for any youth kids watching and stuff, I think the proactive too comes from the goalkeepers coming and talking to you and asking you how to learn how to communicate, not their parents asking you how to teach them. That's like third. I mean, everybody played the game telephone and it never comes out right from the third person. And I think there's also something to be said, which we kind of forget a lot about, is just like playing pickup with your friends and just getting out and communicating on the street or on the small park, and actually just playing football like for fun. And that banter that comes with that we are so focused now on, okay, I need to privately train. I need to focus on this aspect. I need to really work on this, and not just going out and having fun while you're playing the game and picking it up as you're doing it.
But do you ever realize your voice when you do that, when you play pickup, when you're with your friends, it's a calm, even tone. Hey, Mike, pass, Mike, open, Mike here. Like, even if you're playing, like doing a rondo with your friends or whatever, like it's a nice, even tone. You're not like, like, you're not like yelling at your friends. So that should translate into the game. Like, your friends aren't tuning you out here. I agree with you 1,000%. 1,000%. And so
Saskia, that comes with relationship though, right? Like Arianna was talking about, like if you have a relationship with these players, then you are going to have that type of communication, right? But if you don't know these people, that's why combines are so difficult.
But there's another thing you see as well, and that's your own inner anxiety. So, I have a player that's got a great relationship with all the players and stuff like that, but her own inner anxiety on the field, when she's communicating, comes out very stressed, comes out like a crisis is always about to happen. And I'm like if I was a field player and had the ball, I'd be like, whoa, what? You know what I mean? Like, it's always that tone of voice. And I'm trying to retrain that. But that comes from your inner self as well. It's not just, you've got to work on that, and you have to hear yourself. And you don't always need the ball back. It's not always a crisis, but that's the tone of voice. That's what gets translated, and it gives anxiety, your whole back line, the whole team. So that comes from inside as well.
So guys, two things. One, I'm probably going to sit here from this point forward with a UCLA roster, and every time Saskia brings up a name, I'm just gonna try and guess which person she's talking about. So when I go,
I was literally thinking that. I'm like, do your players listen to this and be like, oh my God, is that me? Is that me? Oh, that's you. Nope, that one's you. That was me though. That was definitely me.
That's great. But
well, there are only 4 of them. It's like, no, I'll tell them to their face. It's fine, But well, what am I going to use as an example? I can't. Like,
by the way, if any of the UCLA goalkeepers are ever listening, please comment in the comment section if you're listening live. I really want to know.
But secondary thing is, I think maybe one reason why American goalkeepers were so successful. We talk about cross training all the time, but I mean, Mike, you and I, and I'm sure Arianna too, Saskia you too, we all play basketball at some point in our lives.
I'm such a bad shooter. Go ahead.
Well, in basketball, I mean, look, again, I use this guy as an example all the time. Draymond Green plays for the Warriors. Not the best shooter in the world, but his IQ is so high that he's able to communicate what's happening, the patterns that he's seeing in live time with as quickly as he can, and then people, they get their marks. So I think when you play basketball and you're the person who is, talking to the person who might get screened if you ever play basketball, guys, but understanding that you have like right shoulder, watch out, go over screen, go under screen, no shot, that you're using so many little words based off what's happening in front of you. And I think for me playing as a young kid, communicating that, and then obviously when I get frustrated, getting frustrated. And then I remember one time at Davis, I yelled at one of the seniors and he looked at me, he went off. He was like, you don't know how to take constructive criticism. You're a freshman this, freshman that. You need to understand that you can't just yell at people and not take it back. And I was just like, damn, that's a fact. As a goalkeeper, young kids too, they just scream and scream and scream without understanding that people are hearing these things, digesting it, and they're not gonna like it. I had a teammate one time. I yelled at him, and at halftime, he was like, "Bro, you ever disrespect me like that ever again? We're gonna fight it out on the field." And I'm like, I didn't even think I was disrespecting. He was like, "Bro, you're embarrassing. My girlfriend's in the stands, coming to like the second or third game. She has no idea that I'm sucking in this moment, but you're telling me that I suck." And there's like at UC Davis, there's 50 people here, so everyone can hear everything you're saying. So it's just like you need to understand who wants to hear what, and your teammates, their personalities, and all that.
Not everything motivates other people the same way.
No, definitely.
I love the fact he was pissed at you though.
Omar, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think, Arianna,
transition. Here we go. Transition.
One of the things that I don't listen to the show. I just wait for a transition. No, actually, I don't know anything about goalkeeping. What I wanted to say was, Arianna, what is one of the issues I think that we have, and Omar, I'm glad that you brought that up, is the human connection. And I'm sure you've seen this with young goalkeepers coming up, is that they don't recognize that everything they say, every gesture they make could be read by somebody. So they better make sure that what they're saying is really what they're trying to say, so that it's not miscommunicated. Is that something that you've noticed coming up as well?
Absolutely. And I think this goes into also our body language, and it's something I'm actually working with. I'll do a Saskia right now, our young goalkeeper on our team that's playing with us.
I'll do a Saskia.
Get that PSG roster out.
She puts her hands on her hips all the time.
I hate that.
Every 2 seconds. And like our coach is explaining the next drill, her hands are on her hips with 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, like. And nobody can see me. He's on the podcast right now.
I can see you. I know exactly.
Oh, we can see. Yeah, we can
I know
see.
you guys can, but like, and I walk up and I just take her hands and I'm like, "Can you look at me for a second? Does it look like I want to play right now?" And she's like, "Well, there's a language barrier there too." But every time, and I'm like, "Dude, even." And then you look at the other goalkeepers who are standing out there, and they're not necessarily like in position to play, but their hands are down and they're like active, and she's just like in la la land with her hands on her hips. Every 30 seconds. I'm like,
I hate that.
You're showing our teammates that like you're doing nothing. The girls are older than you. When you go in the goal, they're going to think that you're not confident in what you're doing. She doesn't really have a huge presence. Great goalkeeper, like on her line and stuff. She's shockingly good. When you see her doing that and then you see her getting the goal, you don't think it's the same person. But it's those little things too that goalkeepers have to remember, that everybody's watching you. You're back there by yourself. So even when you're bored in the game, or if you're doing like this kind of thing, or like hands on your hips, or just standing there like this for 10 minutes, it's the worst thing you can do. Yeah. And it can be frustrating, and we have to remind ourselves, like, keep moving, but drop your hands. I don't know. Just my mom used to get so mad. When I was young, I had that fault too. I'd stand there with my arms crossed. I think she's like, "Do you want to go home?"
I think there's a photo of me picking a flower on the field. Another one inside a net, like in the net, like. And yes, of course, you can bring up the tail planes, the tail painting on the airplanes. But I can't stand it either. And I find it very hard to believe that a goalkeeper can go from just chilling, hands on the hips, one leg crossed in front of the other, just hanging out, to all of a sudden having to react and having to play hard and having to focus. And which is why I think when I tell kids, there's always something to do. And so if you're scanning the field, if you're looking more on offense, and if you're just kind of assessing, it doesn't mean you have to talk, but if you're assessing the situation, seeing where the breakdowns are going to be, seeing if everybody's put in place, then you're automatically focusing. You're dialed into the game. You're not chilling out back there with your arms crossed or like this, or blowing bubbles or whatever, and that drives me crazy. And then they wonder why they get scored on. Like, you're like, well, 10 minutes ago you were waving to your boyfriend on the sideline. So, focus.
And I think honestly, like one of the things like I've even noticed and stuff like that is like the weather, the sun. It's really hot. It's really cold. It's raining or whatever. With at the youth level or whatever, and then their body language starts exuding like I don't want to be here. I'm cold. It's hot or whatever. Blah blah blah. And that's gonna feed off your team. And then I think that the other mistake that I see a lot of times at the youth level is that these kids are talking about.
Oh my god! What the hell?
Is it Transition King?
Transition King.
That's right.
That's awesome.
I feel like you need to take the Transition King though and put that above his head so you can
know.
read that.
Oh
and
my
then maybe
God.
just
Head.
feel
I have
like
the crown right. Yeah,
So I know a goalkeeper.
Continue, Saskia.
What was I gonna say? I totally lost my train of thought with that picture, but I was gonna tell you a story about a goalkeeper I knew or heard of. At one point, I'm trying to retweak this a little bit, but I lost my train of thought with that picture because now it looks like you have a crown on your head, Omar.
Yeah, actually, it does. It actually does. By the way, I love the fact that you've got the Venezuela flag on the bottom there. It's very it's very solid. It's a good look right there. No, I was gonna say young goalkeepers, they talk to their team like they're watching TV a lot of times. And I don't know if you guys know what I mean by that, but like they're talking like they're watching a game on TV. And it's like, oh, blah, 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 or like so-and-so or whatever, like, what great shot. Or like, like you're like, look at that pass, or like, whoa, through ball. Like, and it's like, dude, like,
really?
You're supposed to be
What
giving.
kind of kids are you coaching?
You've never seen this before? You've never seen the sportscaster kid who comes on the field and they're just like, great shot. Like, look at the cross. Like, that sort of thing. Like they're doing sports commentary. It's like they're watching.
Sportscaster kids don't make it to UCLA.
Okay. Sportscaster kids don't make it.
There we go.
They do make it to private sessions on a Thursday in West Hollywood.
I'm like the sportscaster kid.
All right. Well,
I can totally see that happening though.
Absolutely.
I'll back you up, but
thank you. Thank you. What I mean is I just want these kids to know that they have to realize that when they're communicating that they're present in the game. It's not a separate game that they're watching and they're giving direction to this game that they're not involved in. It's the same game. And a lot of times goalkeepers play like that's a different game. I'm going to give them some help. And then when the ball gets, when we lose possession, now it's my game again. And I think that's a problem. They need to understand that it's all one game. And I think coaches need to work on that too, because a lot of times I think the way they give direction to their young goalkeepers as if it's like this is your game, now it's their game type of thing, as opposed to it's all in possession, out of possession is the same game. It's fluid. Nice. Does that make any sense?
Way to tweak it, Omar.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. But no, I think also too, I think a lot of times for me, at least when it's like a private session, I think I'm going to start doing this more is just like, hey, what do you say to your goalkeeper or your players? And then also too, like, what is your relationship off the field with your back four? I think in college, you get a little bit more, you go to parties with your teammates. So there's like fun. You get to see them in different lights. You have classes with your teammates. So you get to see them in different ways.
And they do also.
You do all that stuff. And I remember like there's a guy on our team who plays in the USL and his name is Ramon. And Ramon is just one of these, like, he's a big rah-rah guy, loves to yell, loves all that. And there are times where like, if he does something good, I wanted to reward him by literally screaming in his face because I knew that was going to get him going. Like he would make a nice tackle for a corner kick. I'd be like, let's go. Yeah! Hey, that's what I want to see that. I love that. Let's go. Yeah! And so, this is like the PC version. I probably cuss a little bit more in Spanish and never in Arabic, but only Spanish. And so I would yell at him.
It would make more sense to speak in Arabic, wouldn't it? Because like the rest probably understand Spanish, so you could still get in trouble with that language.
There's a higher percentage of Arab referees in California, and they always manage. I swear, and they always referee my games.
I'm gonna need to see the data that you have more Arab referees than Spanish speaking referees in California.
I don't know how, but they always found their way to me. And when I kid you not, there was one time when I was yelling at my teammate because he didn't open up, and I cussed it in English. I cussed him out, and the Arab referee comes over to me and starts speaking to me in Arabic. He's like, "Yo, tone that down, bro. People can hear you." And like in Arabic, and I'm like, My bad. And just like in
See,
those moments,
and if you would have done it in Arabic, he probably would have been like, yeah, I would have said the same thing. You're good.
he probably would have been like, dude, what the hell?
I know, but I need to learn some Arabic cursing.
I'll teach you. Don't worry. Off air, we'll take care. But I think again, that is in my opinion, when you think about goalkeeping holistically, it's just the overall approach as to how to get the best out of your teammates in those moments, in those crucial moments, is huge. And getting to know them really, really helps you adapt and adjust your communication and how you how your players are going to perceive what you're saying.
I'm going to say this and I'll repeat it, and we all know this, but to kids listening out there and parents or coaches, your communication, if we dumb it down really easy, you've got to be direct. It's got to be, you've got to call the person by name. It's the 911 syndrome. It's if somebody gets hurt and there's a crowd around and you say call 911, nobody's going to call 911. But if I say, Mike, call 911, that puts responsibility on Mike's shoulder. So if I'm like, Arianna, force him outside, Arianna, get the team up, or whatever I want to say, if I designate responsibility, number one, I can blame the person if anything goes wrong. But number two, you hear your name and your team will snap into attention because you just heard your name. But if you just make a blanket statement, which we see kids do all the time, force him outside. Who's forcing who outside? You know, there are two people around the ball. Which one's forcing them outside? Which one's cover? Which one's balance? Which one's this? You know, you've got to designate responsibility. And I'm a big proponent of that.
So I think sorry, but just to continue on that, Saskia, you're also taking responsibility yourself. Because if you throw out blanket statements, you're like, yeah, I'm communicating, but you're not actually doing anything. But when you actually designate and you actually take responsibility by saying, this is what should happen, this is what needs to happen, you're taking also responsibility of being like, I know what should happen.
And I told that
what I want to happen. And I told them to do it. So also, if that goes wrong, that was on me.
Absolutely. No, it's a great
point.
So
there's a responsibility level there on too. So I think some sportscaster goalkeepers who are communicating because their voice is supposed to be resonating around the stadium, or that's what their parents like think their voice just has to be going. That we're forgetting is that you're not taking responsibility by giving them the correct direction and using your voice correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with you, because you see in a chaotic situation that you can see it, that I've seen that the goalkeeper might say step up, or might say, you know, go ball or something, right? Pressure ball, when they know it's the right thing to say, but they're like you said, they're not taking responsibility. They're not saying, Mike, pressure ball. They're not saying this is what needs to happen in this moment. I agree with you 100% on that. I'm gonna re-explain things like that one day to another group of people
who may not be
maybe not at practice, because they do it. I'm like feeling so bad right now.
Oh, I was gonna say this, you know, Arianna, one of the things in regards to the specificity, you know, that everyone's bringing up, I think, you know, obviously at the professional level, Saskia, obviously, you know, you played at this level as well too, but that if you're not specific, people are going to be on a different page. And now that lack of specificity is going to lead to certain people going to the ball when they weren't supposed to go to the ball, other people dropping off when they were actually supposed to step up and everything like that. And next thing you know, you've actually created a goal scoring opportunity rather than prevented a goal scoring opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, look, people are going to pass the buck, period. Sorry, they are. And like, or they're not going to react to something, and then they're going to be like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to, you know, I didn't hear, blah, blah, blah. If you're specific and you're direct, you know, that weeds out those questions or issues.
Yeah. I think also too, it's something I like to do when to communicate is like, it's controlled chaos, right? So like, I don't know, I try to use like real life situations to compare sometimes, but like if you ever are in like a traffic situation, you're driving and you're trying to switch lanes, you look in front of you to make sure that there's nobody in front of you, or there's like less traffic in front of you, so that when you look to your right to merge, you can have confidence that you're not going to crash into anybody in front of you, right? So that's what I do. I like to make sure that I take a quick peek, and I look over here, so I make sure that I have like a second or two just in case to transfer lanes. In goalkeeping, when you communicate with your defenders, if you're communicating with your left back and there's stuff that's probably happening on the right side, you put some specificity, put a name on that left back, like, watch the line, or like, Sask, watch the line, Sask left, watch the line. So quickly, now you've given yourself a second or two of a window to communicate what's happening on the other side of the field.
Agreed.
So I feel like if you're able to have that controlled chaos, having specificity on the name allows you to get that person's attention for that split second, apply the information, and then now you've given yourself a 1 second, 2 second buffer window to check the other side of the field to make sure nothing's going on from that side as well. So I hope that traffic scenario giving you guys a little more clarity.
No, I get, but Arianna, do you get this where it's, we have those goalkeepers in the past, like we've had those goalkeepers where it's the repetitive. It's they keep repeating what they're asking a person to do to the point that you've already said it twice. Now move on. Now, the ball is in, let's say, a danger zone. The ball is in a shooting area. It's now you need to focus. You've already told the weak side to mark up. You told them twice, and you get those goalkeepers with their hands still sticking out here, and their ball's over here, and they're like, "Watch the weak side," and the shot comes off. I'm like, you've already said it twice. Now watch the ball and do your job on the ball. And get your positioning down. But sometimes keepers get so caught up in their communication and in that trying to control the chaos, they forget the most important thing, and that's to focus on the ball.
Saskia, is this Kelly, Lauren,
No,
Hannah?
No. This is when I coach for the Bulls.
Oh my gosh.
No, but that's a serious thing. That's across the board. Honestly, yeah. That is. You see, when kids are trying to imply, be communicative and do that, they get so caught up in that part of it that they forget the fundamentals of goalkeeping and that your positioning, watching the ball. Sometimes, and I'll tell them, sometimes just shut up. You've already given the direction. Now focus.
Yeah, but I think that just goes back to what we were discussing before, that all that communication has to have been done in training, where you have the time when you're playing a small-sided game and you play 5 minutes, a minute break, whatever it is. You step over, you talk to the person, you try to clear it up, and then you go back into the next 5-minute game. Where when you're in actual real game, you give the communication, they've either processed it or not, and then you have to be on the ball. Like the game is not when you're going to fix these problems.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'll tell them, one of them, Kelly's injured right now, by the way. But I'll be like, listen, now it's my job. You've organized your weak side. And now if that ball gets served there and they're not marked up, and that ball is put in the back of that, now that's mine, Amanda's, Jane's, or Sam's job. Now it's my time to get on to the defender. You said so-and-so mark up weak side. You said it early, you said it twice. If they're still out to lunch, now that's my job as a coach. You did your job as a goalkeeper. So,
but Arianna, how important is it to have that emotional, just a balance within yourself, so that when you recognize that something's just not clicking with a player, that I don't want to say you give up, but you move on because you just don't have the time, as opposed to it's my responsibility to finally get through to this person. You may never get through to this person. They may just not get it. How difficult is that as a player?
I think that's difficult for anybody. I think it's probably also more difficult for the coaches because they can't actually get on the field and make a difference, where the player could mess up and then you get to make that power save that Omar likes making all the time and looking pretty on the field. But no, I think all of that's super difficult. And I think, as we all know, goalkeepers, we haven't necessarily been in other positions. Maybe you guys have, but I haven't played at a high level at a different position. The emotional and mental turmoil that goalkeepers go through on a daily basis and trying to snap out of those mistakes that everybody sees, or trying to stay focused in the game, or, everything hurts and you're still going to throw your body, or you're going to get nailed in the face right now and you're just going to go anyways. So I think goalkeepers are always in those situations, and it's just another thing that you strap, you untie. I do that a lot. Untie my glove, retie it, and move on.
I like that. It's like a little a trigger word for you. It's like a trigger thing. Let me reset.
Yep.
Reset. Yep.
This is something that I kind of want to ask you, Sask, because obviously you had a presence, as Jill was attesting to in the TKI podcast a few weeks ago, when you were playing, because you had that presence. Did you have to say as much, or did your presence say a lot of the talking so that players kind of just by taking a look and seeing your energy were like, oh, you know what, I better step up to that player right there. You don't need to tell them that because you're exuding that energy, like you have a certain expectation of them.
I think that with Tony DeChico and Paul and stuff, I think my communication was always kept to like bullet points, minimum and direct, even when I was at Rutgers. And this isn't like I'm trying to say this without being like arrogant, but with the national team, you didn't have to give them that much communication. They knew what the hell they were doing. Like, you know, I've got Brandy back there, who's just a natural coach. I've got Carla Overbeck back there, who's, you know, a natural coach. Julie Foudy. These guys are all talking. They're going right up the center of the field, organizing the people to their left, to their right, in front of them. So it's just a filter. So it really came down to around the ball. It really came down to organizing the weak side. I say that all the time because it was always just like a key where like, okay, the ball's coming down this side. What do you do? Call Lily back, like make sure she's organized, weak side back, you know, tucked in, who's pressure cover balance. Like it was just like, but everybody knew their job, which made communication very blunt, very easy, very direct for me and not so chaotic. At Rutgers, I was in a lot more chaotic situations, but I was always just direct to the point. Robin Copperthwaite, my goalkeeper coaches, that's how they were. I wasn't never a like talker. I was never telling people where to pass the ball or what was going on. I just was positioning people. That's how it was always taught. So I think, yes, my presence, I think people listen to me because of my presence, but also my education from my goalkeeper coaches and how to do it properly.
You just brought up something that I never even thought about before, and Omar and Arianna, whoever wants to answer this right here. Is it more difficult to teach communication at the lower levels because the demands of the game, it's just more of a scramble?
Well, like, you gotta hope that the kid understands what the hell you're talking about.
But I know, but the mess in front of them, I'm sure both of you can even attest when you're playing and you're playing with players that maybe you're at a different level than your level or the level that you're accustomed to. How much more difficult it is to handle that communication aspect of the game and the organization aspect because the players in front of you are less experienced, let's just say.
I mean, I think that's true, period. Go ahead. Sorry, Arianna.
No, it's cool. I mean, I just think from my perspective too, I think I would not say that I'm a A+ communicator on the field. I think I'm still always learning and I'm trying to figure out how to speak to each player better and how to communicate better myself. I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger too. By no means am I saying just because I'm pro, does that make me the greatest communicator on the field either. I see things that my teammates respond better to and things that they don't respond to at all, or even too for my team. We've got so many freaking countries on our team that some players like just can tune you out because they don't care what you're saying. We have other girls that like they totally speak your language and you guys are really communicating on the same level. And it's so this whirlwind of the United Nations going on sometimes too for us. Like they really don't care. Like some of our there's like clusters of countries or cultures on our group, and you're like, they don't care what we're saying. Like, but no, so I think it's also too, it's just always evolving and trying to figure it out with your players and trying to figure it out with your team and what's going to work best for everybody and who you need to scream at and who, or as Omar was saying, that player that needs to be like reassured and pumped up by really getting in their face. Yeah, you're amazing. And the other player who needs you to be like, that was crap what you just did. And, get your head out of your blank and whatever is needed on the field. And I think those are growing, those are learning. And I think there's only so much your coaches can teach you about the communication too. It's also being in the game and experiencing it and making mistakes and saying the wrong thing and the ball coming straight down your throat and figuring it out yourself.
And I think you're like having that conversation with your players. Like I'll never forget a comment that Christine Lilly made to me once. And just, she came up to me, I think it was halftime of a scrimmage. And she goes, "Don't ever stop yelling at me to get back." Because she would make those 120-yard runs up into the box, and then I'd have to get her back weak side. And so it was like, Lil, and I like, you're not sure, like, this isn't college, this is national team. I don't see people all the time. Like, how is that person reacting? They're like, oh, Saskia, or what? But she came up to me. She's like, she'll put her head down, and she was just a machine, and she would just run back. And she just said that to me. Don't ever. I hear you. Every time you put me in check, I put my head down and I get back. And she goes, don't ever stop. And that kind of connection was awesome.
I just love what you just said right there.
It came to the point I could just say Lil. Like, I didn't even have to say get back weak side. It'd just be like Lil,
Then that even brings up another conversation. And Omar, I mean, how important is it for you to talk to a player and say, what do you need me to tell you? What helps you? What works for you? Like you said, your boy, he's like, hey man, yell at me. I like it when people yell at me and get excited, get passionate and stuff like that, So how best do we approach these types of conversations off the field so that once we get to the game, we know what makes these people tick and we know what they want to hear from us?
I mean, I think it's just a lot of trial and error, and first it's communicating. I think for me, at least, I try not to have everything so scripted. I don't like to say, hey, tell me what you need me to say, not to the word, but it's more of like, hey, like in this situation, I know there's, this past weekend you conceded a goal and at halftime you did not look too happy. Like, what do you need me to do?
Right.
Do you like it? Do you like it if I have words of reassurance? Do you want me to completely disregard the mistake because you made the mistake and we just talk about tactics? What is it? And they would just tell me, no, like, obviously let me know, hey, that was a mistake, but also, hey, let's talk about tactics. How are we going to bounce back from this? So like Arianna has said a few times already, it's just a lot of that communication and a lot of that just comes from the daily grind of you're in the trenches with these players, you're in preseason, you're doing all these things. So you see them at their best when they've had a great day, you see them at their worst when they've had a bad performance on the day. So you need to understand and really pay attention. As soon as a coach, you start neglecting it because you don't want to get into like the emotional side of the players, that's when you lose the players and you really, it's an uphill battle after that. If you really pay attention every single day to how they're reacting to a good day, to a bad day, you're going to start to see the trends and maybe how they were raised and how the reassurance from their parents, what they need. And I think the more you pay attention to that, the less and less you're going to have, you have to ask more. So you're already kind of just inferring based on the way they've kind of displayed themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes across the board with coaching as well. I mean,
exactly.
You look at it like, if somebody's having a bad, you guys have me so like screwed up with this.
If somebody happens to be,
she can't even think right now what she wants to tell us because she knows she's throwing somebody under the bus. And Omar, when he's like really quiet, we know that he's like on Instagram or something or looking just at your team roster. Like,
totally screwing me up. If somebody's having a bad couple days, you have to decide. Each person's different. You have to read that person. Like you have to. Am I gonna say, if you're playing small sided, this is why this goal happened? What happened here? Let's talk about this. Let's talk. Or some days it's just like pick that one save and just be like, hey, end of practice, great save.
Yeah,
sweet save. And that's the end of it.
Last thing. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm not telling you. So no, I'm not telling you.
No, I think that's the last thing I'll say is from what the earlier point I made about the Cal State LA coach pretty much telling us no coaching from the sideline. He pretty much told me, he said, look, you only have a certain amount of times in the season where you can actually influence a player. And he's like, if you continuously talk, they're going to lose you. You're going to lose them completely. But when you actually have something good to say, bite your tongue, be patient so that when you need to make an actual influence on the game, you can. And that goes back to coaching. It goes back to goalkeeping. It goes back to our communication. And Mike, the last thing we haven't talked about that much is, do we teach our kids how to self-talk? I don't think we do. I think a lot of times it's communication with the team, but a lot of times too, we talk about, the removing the strap or picking up the blade of grass, but like, what is your self-talk? How composed can you be when you've just made a mistake, when you've given a bad pass that went out for a throw and that the team's winding up for a long throw and you have 0.5 seconds to figure out how to, self-talk and get yourself back into to game mode. So I think self-talk is also a huge point too.
Absolutely. I want to jump in on that. Sorry, Mike. I know you're about to get your king mode on and transition into something, but I gotta jump in. We're gonna keep your crown off for 1 second. There was two things that Omar said that I really want to address, and I think he's totally right. Is one, we talk about the body language of the communication. If you come into the locker room and you just got scored on 2 goals and put your head in your hands and you drop your whole body, you're not communicating to your team that you guys are going to go out there in that second half and pick it up. And yes, that happens. We've all been there. And as the coach, yes, you need to try to get your goalkeeper, but goalkeepers need to remember more that all those players are looking at them, and you got to fake it till you make it and try to keep your head up in that locker room, walking off the field. And at the end of the game, you can be super pissed, but I think in that halftime, in those moments, it's so important for your team to be like, no, I got this. Don't worry, I'm still here, kind of thing. And sorry, I had another one, like with the blade of grass, it's the same thing too. It's those body languages that we have on the field that are so important for goalkeepers. We all know it's super easy. The forward can miss 50 goals. They can drop their head every time. They can cherry pick, just stand up there, get a little flick or a deflection because the other goalkeeper made a mistake, and everything's, hunky-dory. But for a goalkeeper, it's not. And we have to just fake it. I really like fake it till you make it, sort of that whole game until you have the moment when you're home alone and you can just let it all out.
Yeah, I mean, Tony used to always say act as if, and so it was just, you have to put that presence on. And as a coach, and for you guys as well, like allow them to work it out, allow them to like figure themselves through it. So coaches out there and stuff like that, like if you see your goalkeeper, if you're playing in practice or small sided or something like that, and you see that head go down and you see that energy, see if they can figure it out, see if they can pull themselves out of it. And and at the end, if they haven't, then have a conversation with them, but don't do it for them. Don't pull them over. Like sometimes okay, is this what's going to happen if we're playing in a real game? What's going to happen? You get scored on the first 5 minutes, let's say. Is your head going to be down? If it was your mistake and your whole team feels that energy? Or are you going to like snap out of it, get your blade of grass, act as if, brush it off. We'll talk about it tomorrow, and exude confidence. And it's in the past because, like you said, forwards do it all the time. I mean, how many shots do forwards miss? And then they'll lay there and they'll be like, oh my God, and the hands will be in the face and they'll be like head on elbows and they'll lay in the ground and it's all like dramatic because they want everybody to know.
Saskia's getting, Lil, get back, right side.
Like, Lil, get back. Exactly. Get off the ground, shake it off, get back. But it's right.
Who's this? Is this Kennedy? Is this Kennedy, Kayla, Callie? Which one is this? Sunshine?
Sunshine. Shine's all. I love Shine.
Definitely at a California school.
Kid ever. Would you say definitely California school? Kennedy, Sunshine.
Oh my God, these are real though too? I thought you were joking.
No, those are real names.
Those are real names.
Those are real names. By the way, for any...
Hawaii. She's youth national team. She's amazing.
By the way, for anybody who's just listening to the audio on the podcast, you really have to go on YouTube, watch the edited video, or go find the live stream on Facebook still, because you guys have missed some visuals that you need to check out. Think
about if a goalkeeper, I want to get back to that. If a goalkeeper like laid on the ground with their elbows in their face, or after something happened, their hands in their face, or went like this to the gods and stuff like that. It's like so dramatic. I'm like, get over it. Like,
okay, but honestly, how many times have every one of you wanted to do that? Like, you save a penalty kick and you just want to like rip your shirt off, run to the corner flag, loop the field, dive in. And then, but in reality, and like you do this play in your mind where you did all that, but really you just stand up like no big deal.
Yeah. We don't have like making save what, running on your knees, sliding.
Yeah, we don't have a save celebration. Yeah. Like, although Caleb,
you see, because the ball still has to be played.
You just throw the ball down.
You're like
yes! Player.
Like, the ball's still in play.
Do the Gronk spike. Do the Gronk spike after you catch it, Omar. You just Gronk spike it down.
Can you imagine?
Oh, I'll tell you guys.
Yes,
go watch that
many times.
The 1999 Champions League final. Go watch Peter Schmeichel do the handstand flip. I mean, the guy at that size, like 6'3", 6'4", that big, doing that. I don't know how he didn't break anything. But that's the celebration I've always wanted to do, but I've never been able to do.
I like the celebrations you see after like a PK, but then the ball's not done.
It just goes.
So it hits the bars and then it rolls into the goal, and the guy's like, the goalkeeper's already celebrating. You're like, it's not over yet.
Oh.
Mike, I think
as a goalkeeper.
one last thing before we move on. I'll tell everybody, and I saw also on social media recently, it was like lead with empathy. Someone posted about empathy, about like if a goalkeeper makes a mistake and you try to do a tactical review on it, empathize with them first before hitting the send button, before you do your breakdown, just because we've all been there before, so understand. But also too, Mike, you're talking about in college you played forward, and then you were finally realizing how annoying it is to have someone nagging at you about finish that shot, do this, do that, when they're not even involved in it, nor do they have a say in the way you finish. Just let it be. So I think I'm not
that good a field player. Like, this is awful. This is the worst.
So I say when you communicate, when you communicate, just always try to lead with empathy. Look for the best way to bottle a message up, and then from there it'll be able to digest. So always lead with empathy before you say anything.
And curse in Arabic.
Yeah, those were the early days.
Unless you're in California, because that's where all the referees are.
Exactly.
I don't know. I had a buddy of mine whose dad was a referee, and he always refereed my games. Riverside.
Wait,
he was
so
always the guy who got
analytics
stationed.
come from one person that randomly was always scheduled at your game, not like a major community of Arab refs.
No, he was either a linesman at the game or the center referee. So I always had him there.
But it was the same person.
Capacity.
It was one person.
One person.
No, there was two. But the other guy, I'm bringing up one guy. I'm bringing up one guy because he probably listens to the show. But I'm bringing him up.
Double.
Love it.
Oh my god.
Also too. But again, I have these spurn of thoughts coming in. But I think this past weekend, I was training a kid, and visually, exactly what we're talking about now. Visually, he just was so upset. And I don't know, growing up, if he was the kind of kid who like wanted to show you were upset, so you could ask what was wrong. But I think that's what he was. And the way he kept pouting and pouting. And we moved from one side of the goal to the other side. We're doing a little angle shot stopping, and I walked up to him. I'm like, first of all, like what you're doing right now, like nobody cares. Like I'll tell you this, the group we're working with right now, no one cares that you're pouting, and hold yourself to a high regard, but don't display it. Like Arianna said, fake it till you make it. Go home and then you can pout about it on the way home, but don't let your pouting show a negative connotation of the goalkeeper that you are, because people can draw assumptions off the littlest of things. Second, we're going to move from point A to point B. When we go to point B right now, if you allow yourself to not get composed and everything that just happened, you allow that to flood into this, and you turn into a shit goalkeeper right now, that's on you. So you need to figure this out for the next 10, 15 seconds. So for me, I just drop little pieces of like self-talk and allow them to find their composure and figure it out on their own.
So I have a question within that though. Sorry. I know. But within this,
you're the one who has to go to sleep, not us. We can keep going.
I do. But how many goalkeepers though, I think, exaggerate, like they're so mad or they're so angry with the mistake they made, but it's a performance to show everybody that like, it's a performance. It's just,
but sometimes it's a performance for the coaches. I'll be straight up honest.
100% is. It's a performance for the coaches, and that pisses me off. And I'll call
or their parents, so that their parents know that they're really upset about it. And
instead of picking the ball up and just focusing on your team, it's that that drama queen stuff. And I'm just like, I hate that. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, we all know you made a mistake. You know you made a mistake. Just move on. But you don't have to like over exaggerate it. We know it happened. It's the same thing as the field players.
But I've even seen the communication, like we're talking about, to finish this off on the communication thing, is like performing an action that is not going to be successful just to show that you're making an action. That's another form of communication. That's a negative form of communication, right, Arianna?
That's a whole nother podcast.
Oh my God.
I feel like there's like 5 podcasts within this too.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole, like doing something, just don't even get me started with that.
Especially on crosses. Long time ago. Oh, on crosses is the worst. People misread the cross and then they come out anyway. It's like,
through balls or breakaways, making the wrong decision and then thinking you should have come, so you come anyway. And it's just like, don't follow one mistake by another. Yeah. Say that all the time. In general, I say that all the time in general.
Well, speaking of not following one mistake with another, we want Arianna to get some sleep, because she's got that class, that obviously that Harvard class that, just wait, geez Louise, you're like, I'm just taking a Harvard class. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, playing, working, and doing the executive stuff, and then oh my gosh. But before we go, Arianna and Omar, do you guys want to plug real quickly the Q&A you guys are doing tomorrow, so people know what it's all about? I know we had mentioned it a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, everybody head over. We're gonna get Omar talking way more because I'm gonna be making him explain most of the stuff. I will just be supplying the questions that people give to me. And I'd like to say that I just posted right before we came on here, and there's like 15 questions already, Omar. So you are gonna be so stoked to analyze them. This actually came out of our 20 questions because so many people started asking them, and Omar was getting really into it that we decided we needed a whole new show that wasn't about the 20 questions are just really about goalkeeping, and we had a lot of international people, I think, asking a lot more stuff.
I will say, I've been getting in better shape physically lately, so it means I could talk more. So I've been going to the gym a lot more now, running a lot more. So my lungs, they have more words in them. So
I don't know if
I'm
that
ready.
makes me super excited or I need more caffeine to stay up later tomorrow night because the show starts late night for me, so I'm gonna be up real late all week.
Yeah, I get a Red Bull or two.
All right, and Arianna, if anybody wants to check that out, what is the handle, the social media handle they should be going to?
So they can go through my handle at AC Footballer, or they can go through Pro GK Academy through Omar's. Either one will get you the info that you need.
Yeah,
that's right.
And obviously, guys, if you wanted to hear Saskia's comments on the IG live, go to Saskia_Webber. She'll be doing a live tweet of all the events that are taking place on that IG live. She just shook her head. She's like, yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm going to do that now. Contact at insidethe18media.com. That's the number 18 at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. If you have a topic suggestion or a guest suggestion, and Saskia's got something. Oh, are you on mute?
You went mute.
You went mute. Oh, she's dealing with something. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll edit this down. Guys, that's all the time on Inside the 18. And does somebody have a quick question? You're on mute.
No, she's done. Just go finish.
Oh, she's done? Okay. All right, guys. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.